All right. So yesterday we saw how credit score affects the total cost of a loan, and today we're going to learn how banks actually calculate those loans. Um, we're going to be modeling loans with something called TVM. So I can use TVM solver to model real world loans to calculate monthly payments is my learning target today. So you use formulas to solve for present value, future value, time, and sometimes interest rates. Um, Back in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and even pre-cal with simple and compound interest formulas and things like that. And those formulas work, but real loans are usually a little more involved and not really just amount of like how much you're going to owe in total or how much you pay in total or how much did you initially uh, put down or how much interest did you pay or how long. Like we can do all those things great. Um, but a lot of the times like we want to know how much, like we learned last unit, when you budget things, but um, bills and things like that come due monthly. So we like, how is that monthly number calculated? That's kind of where we're going with this. Um, so what you learned before in Algebra 1, simple interest, compound interest, and then real loans involve monthly payments, interest over time, changing variables for sure. So that's going to get us to talk about. That's going to introduce us to what's called TVM, which stands for the time value of money. And instead of solving everything by hand like we would in algebra or pre-cal, we're going to use a financial model called TVM, and it does the same math but more efficiently, and it's going to be done on a calculator. So we're only going to do one example, so make sure that you write this down as we go through it. But you can solve for any one of these. You can solve for any of these if the others are known. So uh, present value, future value, which was the same thing as, which are all parts of the simple and compound interest, time. But the addition here is this monthly payment. That wasn't really on that. Remember the A equals P, parentheses, 1 plus or minus R, and then parentheses raised to the N times T. I think I missed something. N divided by uh, R or something like that. Yeah. Um, Anyways, so TVM can be powerful to solve for these things. Let's see. For car loans, we'll usually solve for monthly payments, and monthly payments connect directly to your expenses from the budgeting unit. So here we do have variables, and at first they might look confusing because there's a lot of them, but they're really not. They all stand for something. So you'll be given something in terms of time. You'll see this letter N. We're always going to express this in how many months that is. So if I say I'm going to get a loan for a year, then our N would be 12 because there's 12 months in a year. Or, um, or if you see that, or if you see that something's 360 months, that's 30 years. So if you're saying I'm gonna get a 30-year mortgage, that would be 360 months. So the number of months in that thing is our N. I% is just like the actual annual interest rate. The difference between this and the compound interest and simple interest is we don't have to convert it to a decimal, and you don't want it to convert it to a decimal. So if it's 6.2% for the rate, we're going to type in 6.2. And if it was in algebra 2 or pre-cal, we would type 0.062 for our little r. Our PV is considered our amount that we actually borrowed. So this would be like our P value in our simple and compound interest. Um, but this stands for present value. So you can do a lot with this TVM. We're going to strictly deal with finding monthly payments. So in the past, I've actually taught a little more involved than this, but these numbers, like this PV right here, depending on whatever we're talking about, some of them are going to be negative, and I'll kind of explain why. But if you're trying to find something else, it really depends on the situation. But don't stress about that because we're really focusing on what we're going to talk about now and really nothing else. So you'll see PMT, that stands for monthly payment. And then FV stands for future value. So, or total value, like in the simple and compound interest. So, I do have a note up here. This is always going to be zero for loans because the future value is not saying how much uh, it's not saying how much like your car is worth if you got a car loan. It's saying how much do you owe? Like if N was 36, that means for 3 years. If you've made 3 years of payments, what do you owe on this loan? Well, it's $0. This is saying how much do I owe at the end of the loan? You shouldn't owe anything. So for loans, which is what we're dealing with, this is going to be $0. If we're looking for something else, like in a different class or whatever, it's like if you use this in for something else, it's not always don't automatically just write this as zero. It's zero because we're talking about paying off a loan. Okay, so and in the future, that loan when it's paid off, that means you have a zero balance. You don't owe anything. Okay, so a couple of sign rules. I mentioned this a second ago. So money that you receive, like money that you actually get, is considered positive, and then money that you pay is considered negative. So for loans, we would say our PV is a positive number. Our present value is a positive because we're actually receiving that money for the loan to buy whatever we want. But what do we do additionally is we make payments on that. So that comes out of our check or out of our pocket or whatever. So the PMT is going to be always negative for this unit. And our future value is always going to be zero. So let's just see how this works real quick. So to access the time value of money solver, we're just going to do one example just to see how it works. Your answer should look the same as mine. So in your calculator, there should be an apps button. So go ahead and hit the apps button. And after you hit the apps button, you're going, I think there's just one button, it's finance. So go ahead and hit enter and then find TVM solver. It may be the top one. My calculator, hold on, let me see if I have it on here because one of my calculators, apps, enter. Yeah, it's basically apps, enter is the top three. And then you should see all of these variables that we just talked about with a few extras at the bottom. So let's go ahead and fill this in just so we kind of can get practice. So make sure you write this down in your notes. This is our only problem. We're told that we're going to get a loan for $10,000. The interest rate is 6%. And the term is 60 months, which would be 5 years. I care about the 60 months, not the 5 years. But sometimes it will be written as 5 years. You would need to write this in months, which would be 60. So I can go ahead and fill out everything I need to just from these three bits of information. So first of all, N is how many months total, your term. That would be 60 months. We're given that right here. And then we're looking at our I percent. That's our annual interest rate, which is 6%. We're given that there. Our PV, that is how much we are borrowing. Our loan is 10,000, so our loan is what we're being borrowed. That's positive because this is talking about a loan. And then we're going to come back to PMT because that's what we're going to find. So I'm going to come back to that. And then my future value, I'm going to mark as zero. And for the point of this class, we're also going to make these following two PY and CY, both 12. That just means payments per year. How many times do you pay this loan back a year? And if this was a car loan or whatever, you'd pay that every month more than likely. So you're making 12 payments a year, PY. And then the other one is compoundings per year. We're going to leave both of these as 12 and 12 for this class. And then we're going to make sure that this is selected. And it usually is, there should be an end and a beginning for the default. Just make sure end is highlighted. And so we need to make sure we enter all of these numbers here. And then we go up to PMT, which we're solving for. And we hit alpha, which is the green button, and the enter. And then we should have this number show up. Okay. This is the number that comes out of the calculator. Obviously, so if I asked you how much your monthly payment is, you would not tell me negative 90. $193.33. You would say $193.33. So this is showing up negative just because it's saying you owe that. Okay. But when I ask you what your monthly payment is, don't tell me with the negative. Also, we don't write digits for money typically after the hundredth place. So after this two, so my answer should look something like this where I'm rounding it. I only should have two decimals to the right of the decimal place, or two digits to the right of the decimal. And that's it. That's TVM solver. We're going to use that for our project.